Okay, so this is the third episode of what we're calling Balkanized here on this Balkanizer podcast. And we've just been looking at how we came to be living in our separate ways in Serbia. And we got onto the topic of Greece and the Holy Mountain, or it was Mount Athos. Um, And so I was basically, just to go back a bit on my coming to Greece and the background to that. So I was coming from a Protestant point of view. I was coming with the idea, I was very interested in Greek language and ancient Greek culture, and I was coming with the idea of um, learning more about that, getting a first-hand experience of it, and that is helping me to understand the Bible because the sort of the central uh, principle of Protestantism, at least
Mhm.
traditionally, is that the Bible is the sole authority of this expression sola scriptura, that is the
Yeah.
authority. So I wanted to understand the Bible more and to have a better insight into it. And that but when I got there, I had the reality was this orthodoxy, which was all around you. And if anyone goes to Thessaloniki, they'll know
Mhm.
that there's a lot of churches there. It's a very orthodoxy has a very high profile, and so that was what I had to face, and I just started investigating really,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
and one thing led to another with that, and I guess.
And were you baptized soon after that? When did
Well,
your
I
baptism?
arrived in 2008. I was actually baptized like 2011, 12, that actually on the hub of the year. So depending on if it on the old calendar, as it is on
Uh-huh.
Holy Mountain, they
Yeah.
keep the old calendar. So it was actually the end of 2011 and it was the beginning
Mhm.
of 2012 on the new.
Do
Um,
they still use the old Byzantine dating system? So the
well,
years
I
are
mean,
different.
not, no. I mean,
No, right.
not in any official. I had a certificate of baptism, and that I think that has, just a standard year on it. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
and I think
Because the Byzantines used to measure the years or number the years from the creation of the
from
world, right?
creation, yeah,
Not
yeah.
from,
So we're
yes,
now seven thousand
not from
five
the
hundred
birth of Christ.
thirty-three, if I'm not
That
mistaken.
that's the right. That's the
Yeah,
date of it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Which, yeah.
Mhm.
So maybe this is a good tradition. Um, so yeah, that was so. It was
So yes, that
actually
was your
it was
conversion.
three
But
years. So it took me best part of 3 years, didn't it? Two and a half. No, well, let's see, October. So that was eight to 10. That's one. Nine to so 8 to 9. One, 9 to 10. Yeah, yeah. It was over 2 years, two and a bit. So in that period, um, I at first I sort of took this very big interest. Um, and then I think I was always interested. I was always going to church, but my inward thinking about it sort of moved a bit, understanding what it was.
well, there's a lot of mental space to cover there, isn't there? Between
There is. Yeah,
the
yeah.
Protestant tradition, which, as you say, is sola scriptura, it's the Bible and
Yes.
nothing else, and graven images are very much frowned upon,
Well,
aren't
that's
they?
right.
On the
That's
whole,
right. So
um,
that's it. So there's some quite big jumps. I mean, the icon step was actually quite simple.
mm,
I went to a film fair every November in Thessaloniki. They have the Thessaloniki Film Festival, and
right.
I went to see. It was a documentary about life in a courtroom in Athens,
Mhm.
and behind the judges was an icon of Christ. And I just saw this in the film, and it was like, oh well, maybe that's quite a reasonable thing to have there. So that was very. I'm a bit like this that when I see something, I just suddenly click. It's not
Mhm.
like it was a long process. I just immediately I went out and bought an icon soon after that.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
so that was just when you see something in massive use, you then say, well, are people so crazy, that they do this? That's the first
Yeah.
thing because
Yeah.
when you're
Mhm.
a Protestant living in London, you don't really you think, okay, well, there's some icon idol worshippers somewhere in other countries, but they're not here, or there's only a few of them.
Yeah.
But when you're surrounded by it and you see the people who do it are quite normal or even quite good people or whatever, um, it's like, okay, well, maybe there's some benefit in this, it can't be bad. So I think that was a big challenge for me, and that's how it resolved itself. And I think once you've accepted icons, then the other things, there were other challenges that as a Protestant, I had to deal with. One is the place of the Mother of God. That this is
Yes.
central in
Hmm.
Orthodox worship. Um, um, so that took a bit of time, but it's a sort of theological um, outcome. If you take the theology of the incarnation seriously, then this the
The
Mother of God,
Theotokos has
Theotokos, the God
yes.
bearer.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So these were the sort of chief things, and I had sort of very other of my own ideas, which I guess I developed in my independence as a sort of free, well, how can I say, non-aligned Protestant as well. By the end, I had no real
Hmm.
denominational
Yeah.
attachment, and I thought I understood the Bible as well as anyone could. But there
Hmm.
was a few things I had to adjust. And when you see Orthodoxy, it's very hard. It's such a this amazing ritual and complexity, and how's that can that be when I've been thinking all the time that everything I can deduce from the Bible, it was quite a jump. But
Hmm.
eventually the pull was strong enough, and I went to Mount Athos, Holy Mountain. Um,
How important are the church fathers in the Protestant tradition? I mean, do people refer to them? And
well, it
Athanasius
depends
is
which
referred
which
to in the
Protestant you
Book of
talk to.
Common
Yeah, there's a
Prayer,
whole
isn't he?
range. There's a whole range. I think the more, historic, larger denominations, if you go to a theological seminary, you'll find that they study the fathers.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. Hmm.
but typically, from my own experience, I mean, first of all, let's say I was in Anglicanism, right? Which I would say the didactic content was minimal. I don't remember anything real theological message I was getting. It was just going to
Yeah.
church. There was some message which might have been more or less pious from the pulpit, and that was it. Um, and I guess in student days, those like post-student days, it was sort of more like radical theology. Again, not
Hmm.
not connecting with the fathers really.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and then in what I was in was a sort of Puritan type nonconformist. And they again they're not so, they're interested in like Augustine because he was taught about predestination to some extent. So
Yeah, yeah,
that they see, I think a lot of sort of Lutherans, Calvinists, they see their roots in Augustine.
yeah, yeah.
So Augustine is the chief father for the Protestants, I
For
would
the
say.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, of course. Hmm. Yeah.
Um, so
Yes, but yes, and the other thing was that I mean that first experience of entering an Orthodox temple. I mean, when was do you remember the first time you entered
Yeah, the
an
first
Orthodox
time,
church?
which was significant. I mean, of course, I don't know if I ever went before I went to Greece, if I ever entered an
Hmm.
Orthodox church. I guess I did somewhere in London or who knows where. Um,
Hmm.
but really, it was, as a tourist to Greece, I entered a few times, but I was still a Protestant, so I just sort of looking around kind of thing.
Yeah,
But it was when I entered on one Sunday morning, soon after I arrived in Thessaloniki. That I you could hear the liturgy coming out on
hmm.
loudspeakers, and that's
Right.
what a lot of
Hmm.
churches do. They broadcast it so you can hear the whole thing.
Hmm.
And to be honest, I didn't really know what it was. I was that ignorant.
Hmm.
I thought, is there a mosque in Thessaloniki or something? I wasn't. It wasn't 100% clear what it was. So I went, and it was in the cemetery. It was the church in the cemetery,
Hmm.
near to the Aristotle University, and I went up and I could see, okay, this is a church. And I went up to the church, and I went in, and the liturgy was in full swing. And I was like, the priest was in blue, as I remember, blue vestments. And of course, the incense, the place was sort of incense. He was sensing at that point. Um, and I was impressed by the sort of the beauty and the whole impression that it had on me.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and it actually sparked something in my mind, which was the studies I did at university. We had lectures by Dermot McCulloch, who's a prominent church historian, who wasn't so back in the day when I was at university. He was still not so advanced in his career, but
Mhm.
he was lecturing us about church history, and he lectured about the councils, the ecumenical councils, and that whole period of Byzantine history, and it just brought that back to me, for some reason.
Right,
Um,
right.
and that was really the beginning of the intellectual process, as well as it's this physical experience that all the senses are engaged, but
Hmm.
also there is a theological background to that. So it sparked that as well.
Yeah. Yes, I mean, I certainly remember the first time I went into an Orthodox church, and it was in Greece on a Greek holiday when I was about 14, 15. But it certainly left an impression on me. It was that, yeah, emotional response. Uh, I had no, unlike you, I had no real knowledge except that it was a Christian church, but no knowledge of what was going on. But there was something. Uh, very moving about the whole process.
Mhm.
As you say, the five senses engagement of the whole atmosphere, the scent of the incense, uh, the, um, the overall atmosphere, which was, I mean, I'm a great lover of the Western cathedrals as
Mhm.
well.
Yes,
They for me they express um, an incredible level of virtue in that
yes,
religious tradition, no doubt about it. But it's a different experience slightly. It's a different entering a church like Durham Cathedral,
hmm
and there's something more intimate about the
yes,
Orthodox
yes,
experience.
yes,
I don't know. Is that
yes. That's it. I
your
think
feeling
that's it. I
too?
mean, yes. Quick diversion onto
Mm,
relative aesthetics and some
yeah,
quite
yeah,
deep theological implications, really, that the Western cathedral is this sort of God as this mighty authority above you, high up and distant,
yeah,
whereas the an Orthodox church in the most classic Byzantine style, the icons are really basically at, not much above head level, so
yeah.
basically
Mm,
you're seeing human beings, right?
hmm.
And that's the whole point of the incarnation, that Christ became man. Um,
Yeah.
and that has big implications for spirituality and wider social political issues as well, actually, I would say.
Yes.
Um,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's a good point. Um, so yeah, so that's it. I mean, I guess that's what
Yeah.
we're coming here in this is the sort of, we're now in the early teens, aren't we? And
Yeah.
that um this point of the sign, you can't really understand the Balkans without understanding Orthodoxy. I think
No. No. Hmm.
that's a would that be fair to say?
Yes, yes. I think that's very fair to say. Yeah, yeah. I mean, to the extent that I do understand it, and we call the podcast Balkanized, and of course that term, from an English point of view, is rather pejorative in many ways, isn't
Yes.
it? When you are Balkanized, you're fragmented and
Yes.
disrupted and
Yeah.
broken up and divided. And here we are presenting it as some sort of a virtue. So,
Well, that's it. I mean, it's just
um,
sort of challenging, isn't it, by saying this word, that it's
mhm,
probably got a wider significance than just, but that, yeah, the classical
yeah,
dictionary definition is just about the division of an area into smaller national
mhm, yeah.
units.
And there's
Um,
no doubt that it is rather fragmented. And as we've been going through our histories here, we see processes of fragmentation going on all the time, don't
yeah,
we?
well, that's it,
Yeah.
so it's been yeah, sort of lot of change, a lot of moving around.
Hmm.
And that would
Yeah.
bring me to the next stage in my own, um, what's the word, progress, if you like, if that's
Yeah.
the right word,
Hmm.
would be that although I loved Greece and it was everything, I
Hmm.
felt a bit isolated there. So I'd left my
Yeah.
family back in Hungary, and my children were still at school. They were still sort of secondary school age students.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I should try and be with them. I just felt I wanted to be closer. I'm not driving such huge distances, which I couldn't, I could afford neither time nor financially to do on a very regular
No.
basis. So I thought it'd be better to, you know, be nearer to them. So I actually decided to move back to Budapest. This wasn't where they actually lived. They lived in the west of Hungary, but it was like
Right.
I could be nearer them and see them more regularly.
Yeah.
Um, so that was my next step, as it were, which was a hard decision to make, but in the end, that's what I decided to do. Um, and so again, I was going through Serbia, for the umpteenth time. And actually, what happened when I was living in Budapest was I was coming, well, I was going back to Greece. I went back a few times, for a trip, but also Serbia. I started going to monasteries, or at least a particular monastery in
Yeah.
Serbia. I just tried to
Right.
find some point of contact there.
Yeah.
So I didn't de-Balkanize myself, if that's the right word.
No, no, right, right. Which was the monastery that you
It's
were
called
going to?
Kovel,
Hmm.
and it's near to Novi Sad.
Right.
It's quite a big monastery in terms of, it's got a good number of monks there. And in fact, the current patriarch, he
Hmm.
was the abbot.
Right, I see.
When I was there, he
Hmm.
usually wasn't actually there in person. The deputy
Hmm.
monk um, was there, Isahir, I think his name is, who is now he is now also a bishop. Actually, he's a bishop of
Right.
the church. So
Hmm.
I had contact with him.
Hmm.
Um, so um, yeah, that was it. That was it. So I'm just basically making the point that I was in Budapest. I was attending Orthodox churches in
Hmm.
various jurisdictions in Budapest, but I felt this need to be in a completely Orthodox environment, if you like,
Yeah, yeah,
somehow.
yeah. Kovilj is that in Fruška Gora, the mountains
It's
to
not actually in
the
Fruškogorje.
south?
No, that's interesting.
No.
It's not. It's still
Hmm.
it's still in the plain, if you like.
Right.
So it's near,
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
but it's actually on the other side of the Danube, isn't it? Yeah, it's on the other side
yeah.
of the Danube. Yeah.
'Cause that tiny little area of the world has always been interesting to me. This um, the Fruška this
Yes.
essentially like it's like a little island, isn't it? A small
Yes. Yes.
mountainous or hilly region,
Yes.
just on the southern bank of the Danube across from Novi Sad,
That's right.
and with a number of quite old Serbian Orthodox
Yes.
monasteries,
Indeed. Indeed.
that were established outside the Ottoman Empire by Serbian refugees or Serbs who were
Aha.
moving to
Yeah.
and from
Yes.
the
Yes.
um, who were just living across the river from
Yeah,
the
it's an
Serbian
interesting. I
heartlands.
don't know the history too well, the
No,
early
no,
history
I
of
don't really know.
Fruškogora.
No,
I've
yeah.
been there a few times, just at some of the monasteries, but it's
Some
that
of them are
early
sort of
history and how it became
16th,
established.
15th century, aren't they? Yeah, yeah,
But they go back. They go back a
yeah.
long way. So yeah, it'd be interesting to know more about how, the relation with the Ottoman Empire and how they
Mm.
they they sort of outside the empire they it sort of built up.
Yeah, yes, it's like these sort of little microstates that never quite coalesced
Oh
into
right, yeah, that could have been another one,
a
another Mount
real,
Athos.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, it's again a feature of the Balkans that you get these little areas that um, um, almost became states but didn't, or were states
Right.
once, or were part of a bigger state and then
Yes.
became part of
Yes.
another one. Yeah, it's
Right.
this
Yeah.
endless sort of uh, division and reunion that's going on all the time.
Yeah. So what about you? Did you at this period in this sort of from 2010 to
Mm.
2020, how was that looking for you?
Oh, well, it's relatively stable. Yeah, I was just doing my job. I was in the business of having another family. My first son, Darko, that is my first son by my second marriage.
Yes.
My fourth son, in fact. Darko was born in 2010, Um, Tessie came along in 2014, and Lyra, the youngest, in 2019. So that more or less covers that period.
Yeah.
I was my the establishment of my second family, and my wife and I got ourselves a place here in central Belgrade, where we've been all that time. Um, I suppose one excursion from that point during that time is when I bought an old house and some land in a village about 40 kilometers south of Belgrade. Uh, and that was where I began to get a feeling for village life in
Hmm.
Serbia, I
Yes.
guess. So that's actually how we met through a mutual friend who lives in the
Yes,
same
that's
village.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, mutual friends in that village because we're also in it. We're in another village. We're in Vojvodina, which is
Yes.
the other side of the Danube, which is interesting. This is another topic, isn't it? The whole the different cultures in different parts of Serbia, but here
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's more of a sort of more cosmopolitan culture.
Hmm.
Our village, for example, has a very large Romanian
Right.
minority, just I think
Hmm.
it's more than 30, 40%. I mean,
Oh, really?
they all
Hmm.
speak Serbian,
Hmm.
but they're Romanian. There's a Romanian church here, so we have both a Serbian and a Romanian church.
Right. I see. Yes. Yeah. Both Orthodox, of course.
Yes, yes, that's
Yes.
right.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yes, yes. So I mean, yes, village life was something that I came to understand there. It probably is different, as you said, in my part of Serbia. I was struck, for example, by the how much of the old Turkish vocabulary is preserved in the Serbian villages there among the old people,
Really?
in contrast to the standard Serbian. Yeah, but it's more the experience of that uh, small scale peasant agricultural existence, and the fact that we do actually in Serbia see some survivals of that. I mean, in England, that was all swept away by enclosure in
Yes, yes,
the late 18th, early 19th century, wasn't it? So the English village is a very different animal to the Serbian village, and
yes.
particularly now. I mean, the English village, I don't know quite how you'd characterize it, but it's certainly not a place where people live off the land.
Yeah, it's not something where there's a tractor in the backyard. Yeah, for example, here,
Mm,
so a lot of people, most properties are quite large. You're talking about 2,000 square meters or more.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and people will have, not everyone. I mean, but a certain proportion are farmers, and they've got their tractors and their combines and everything on their land. They built. There's a gate, and they drive them into their
Hmm.
courtyard, kind of thing. So
Yeah.
that is, there's a fair proportion of people who are driving around in their agricultural vehicles
And you
on
yourself have your own modest, but actually, I was very impressed by your own little agricultural
modest
setup
is the
there.
right word. Yeah. Yes. I mean, yeah, our plot is smaller than average. Overall, we just over 1,000, something like that, including the house, so it's not, it's smaller than average, but that's all I certainly need anyway, just to
Mm,
try and grow stuff. We have chickens and a couple of ducks. So, we have some connection with the land, I suppose you could say.
yeah, yeah. It's something I wish I did have, but
But you have the potential, don't you? Because you do have that.
I've quite a lot of potential, but
Yeah.
unfortunately, not enough time to
Yeah.
do anything with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I
Um,
find that even with this outside my window, I mean, because there are other things to do, it's very hard to keep up with it, properly.
mhm. Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and if just this year we've experienced this, if you're away or you're too busy at the critical period, which is really,
That was
March to May, to be honest,
Yeah, yeah.
then. So we're learning lots of things to learn for amateurs.
Yes, that was certainly my experience. That yeah, there's no way I could keep a garden if I was going to be shooting off to
Yes,
the UK or to
yeah,
on
that's
holiday and
it.
stuff in the
That's it.
summer. Yeah.
That's
Even
it.
my blackcurrant bushes were relatively successful for a while, but if they don't
Oh,
get watered in July,
yeah,
they
that's it. You've
die.
got to, yeah,
Yeah.
somebody has to do that, don't they?
Mm.
Good. Well, I mean, the basic idea of this first series was just to sort of,
Yeah.
see
Bring
how we
us
got
through
where we did and what
to
it
the
is to be in
present
the Balkans. I
and
don't know, is there
mhm.
anything that we need to add to what we've said? I'm just looking through our little notes here. Um,
I mean, yeah, so this interaction of events on the political and cultural scene and our own personal lives, I guess, yeah, we're entering in another kind of period now with the whole um, Ukraine business um, and how Serbia has a slightly different response to that. We've got a large influx of Russian
yes,
refugees
yes.
into the country, which is it's had an impact, so for sure, economic and cultural, I think, as well. So there's that, and it also has perhaps distanced us here a little bit from the European community because we're not quite on message as far as
Yes.
criticism of Russia is concerned. So it's having
Yeah,
sort of
that's it. I mean,
again an interesting push-pull effect on our lives here in the
yes,
Balkans.
indeed, indeed. There's all sorts of things going on now.
Mm.
Um, so yeah, here we are. I think that's why it's sort of interesting to live here in a way that you can see this the sort of it's like um the world level cultural divide
Well,
or
it's another thing that we haven't
yeah,
mentioned, is it?
yeah,
The influx of refugees, because of course the in the um, uh, when did it really start? Sort of 2016,
yes, yeah, I
2017,
remember
when
that.
we've
I was
had
in
the
Hungary and
first
there was a big
huge,
yeah, there was a
right?
big deal about it there. Yeah, yeah.
Because as always, we are on the main thoroughfare between east and west, or east the main
Yeah,
land route um, uh,
yeah.
from the Middle East to Europe. So yeah, we had huge numbers of people camping in the parks just near my flat here.
Is that right? Is that right? I think
Yeah,
the
yeah.
same time I was in Budapest and there was a big um what's the word? Yeah, congregation at the station,
Hmm.
Keleti station, the
Yeah.
big terminal. But they were
Hmm.
also gathering here by the sounds of it at the same time.
Yes, yeah. Well, the Serbian strategy was simply to to welcome them in at one end and
Yeah.
pass them on
Well, that's it.
at
I
the
mean,
other.
basically, they're looking for greener pastures, aren't they? So,
Yeah, yeah.
not so many stayed here.
On the whole, not many wanted
Yeah,
to settle
yeah,
in Serbia. Yeah,
yeah,
but it's again a reminder of the fact that your geographical position determines um, your existence in many ways.
yeah, yeah.
Um, um, so yeah, we had that experience of watching these people flowing through um, in a well, it's a strange process to me. I don't know quite.
Well, yeah, yeah. That's right. Who knows where it's all going?
Mm.
But yeah, we're not seeing the sort of final result of it, really, are we? Yeah.
No, because on the whole, people don't settle here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but although I think the workforce is beginning to be supplemented here as well. I've noticed.
That's a change, a more
Yeah,
recent change, isn't it?
yeah,
Yes, and all of a sudden, the bus drivers of Belgrade are no
yes,
longer Serbian.
that's right.
A lot of foreigners have become
Yeah,
bus
and
drivers
I
here.
think
We
there are
used
some
to see,
in the Panchev area. There seems to be some projects going on, which people are coming in from
yeah.
further
Of
reaches.
course, a lot of the other people working. There's an awful lot of construction going on here, and an awful lot of the workers are not Serbian either.
Yeah, I think that's
So
probably what it is. Yeah, mostly
yeah,
construction.
yeah.
Yeah, it's
Mm.
good. Well, look, there's a
So
lot of interesting things to still talk about. But is there any other points you want to add to this sort of initial uh,
initial biography.
biography and how it brought us, how our fates brought us here, as it were?
Yes, sorry, I'm just looking now
Yeah.
to what we've said. I mean, um, yes, well, we've been looking at the religious side more closely this time around, and um, I suppose there's the that that final event for me is at
Of
least
course,
one
yeah,
of the
that of
most
course. I
recent
knew there was
events is
something.
my
Yeah, yeah,
my my christening in
yes,
October of 2024. So that was when I was formally entered the Orthodox Church at the our, our local parish church
yes.
here in Belgrade. And yes, I mean, I'd been sort of toying with the idea of becoming Serbian Orthodox, officially joining the Orthodox Church for a while. Um, but I suppose really, if I'm honest about it, it was my wife's. She was already christened in the Orthodox Church,
Right,
but
right.
her understanding uh, and need for a more active religious life um, was the main impetus, I would say, for me to join the church. At the same time, our three children were christened with me, so we had a group christening
Yeah, that's a
and
tremendous
joined.
event.
And I said,
Yeah, that's really nice. It all.
yeah, and then we got married a few months after that. So I'm now officially established as an Orthodox Christian with an Orthodox Christian wife and
Well,
family. So
congratulations.
thank you. Yes, so that brings us up to date from my point of view.
Yeah, so yeah, that's really great, and that's a good way to conclude, I think. So
Great,
we're thoroughly
great.
balkanized,
Yes, yeah,
all of
yeah,
us, and we'll see. Hopefully, we'll have further things to say
yeah.
in later episodes.
Fragmentation and unification. That's
Yeah,
the way it's gone. Yeah.
great. Okay, Charlie. Well, I think we'll close it
Okay,
there,
Peter.
and we'll get back
Yeah.
later.
Great.
Great.
Goodbye for now then.
All right. Cheers.